record on this computer. So welcome everybody to our Cyberops meeting for today. One of your classmates has just made me aware that I forgot to share the actual playlist to everybody. So now if you go into O'Reilly, you should be able to see a Cyberops playlist. And inside of that playlist is both the official cert guide and the official video course. So if you are like me and you like to read, then also watch the video. There is a video course in here that you can use, which is extremely helpful. I think, Uzma, that was your main question. Any other questions as we get started here? Ralph, do you have a question?
Robin, so far is okay. So far I am still reading. I didn't start my lab yet.
That's okay. That's not a problem at all. And your net lab should be the same as you had with our other classes. So same username and everything. If you have any problem getting in, just let me know and I'll change your password for you. Hey, Ralph, okay. I see you got in here. Hey, Ralph.
Hey,
do you have any question for me, Ralph?
Nope, so far so good.
Okay. Robin, any questions?
Hi, I'm actually just getting home. So if I think I'm okay. I'm still working on what we had discussed via email. Is that okay?
Yeah, no problem. That's no problem at all. We really have a good while to get that done. I just tell people I've got to have it done earlier because people forget to do it. And then that's how we verify quote attendance is to do that. So it's not a problem.
Okay.
Glad you can make it.
I'm glad I could make it as well. Hello, everyone.
Robin, you want to do a quick introduction? I know you hadn't been able to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, sure. My name is Robin Perry. I am the Cisco Academy instructor at Mergenthaler Vocational Technical High School in Baltimore City. We have been, well, I think the Cisco Academy has been there for quite some time. I have been teaching at that location since 2012. I can tell you that it has been a very rewarding experience for me. I guess at this age, you know, trying to work towards retirement now, I feel like I'm able to give back and so forth. So I'm really just kind of enjoying myself right now. One of the challenges that I'm having really has to deal with just making sure that I have all the technology in place since we are kind of in school and don't know whether we'll be out of school and things of that nature. And so I'm hoping to get to know you guys and gain some additional information and find out what you all do to try to keep your students engaged through the transition. So nice to meet everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. I do, as you mentioned that, I want to go ahead and tell you, I don't know if you've ever used NetLabs before, but we are more than willing to share our NetLabs. We may be sharing packet tracer pods with you already because I know we're sharing with a lot of schools in the Northeast. But if you need NetLabs for your student classes, just let me know. We do share our pods that have real Cisco gear on it. We have 18 pods with real Cisco gear, actually 20 pods with real Cisco gear. I'll be willing to do that, and I've done that with several schools in the past. So just let me know and we'll do what we can, because I know in the time that you're in the classroom one day and then maybe 2 days you wouldn't be in the classroom, well, we can come in and I can give you access so they can continue to do labs. So that's not a problem. So,
thank you. That's awesome. I would love
it. I want to make a couple things. I want to do a couple things. First off, today, I want to talk about kind of what this class is and where this class fits into your curriculums and into your programs. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time lecturing on the first couple chapters because a lot of the first couple chapters are pretty easy things to do. I do want you to realize that we do have in NetLabs as part of your class, you have all the labs that you could do. And I've got it down here. It's this Cyberops Associate Spring 22. And you can do you can do all the labs pretty much that are actual hands-on labs inside of NetLabs, but you also have the option of loading the virtual machines locally if you want to do that. So some of you have already done that. Some of you did the first lab and loaded them locally. The only issue that normally happens when you load them locally is if virtualization is turned off in BIOS or if you don't have enough disk space. A lot of times you'll run out of disk space when you're making VMs. I thought of another thing that we need to make a real mental note of for you as you start to teach this class. If you're going to require students to load it on their local machines, you need to be aware of what if someone has a Mac at home. Okay, you can get a VirtualBox. VirtualBox will load on Mac, and you can also get what VMware Fusion, which you could probably load and tweak the settings with. The problem is going to be if you're using the locally loaded virtual machines, they expect when you go to use Windows PowerShell and create local user accounts in the section on Windows here, they expect you to use the host operating system that you've loaded VirtualBox on. Well, the student who has a Mac is not going to have a Windows operating system. So they won't be able to do the Chapter 3 labs with this Windows operating system. So I would probably make it a question to ask all your students, if you're going to use the locally loaded option, do you have a Mac as your primary machine? Because they're going to run into some, I won't say insurmountable issues, but there'll be some issues there that they will need to get around. If you need to use our NetLabs for your classes, just let us know. We can make that work too. Especially you may want to have them do most of the stuff locally if they have a Mac, and then just come to our site and do, you know, the Windows things if they don't have that. Okay, but just be aware. I thought of that and I was like, I better mention the Macintosh issue. The other thing I want to mention for you, and you may not know this anyway, but as you log into NetAcad, most of us go straight to our I'm Teaching tab. But if you go to courses, or excuse me, resources, course resources, this will list all of the courses. And for our Cyberops Associate course, under here under English, I mean, obviously there's other languages there, but we've got everything from a certification mapping to the instructor lab source files that will give you the answers, the packet tracer source files with the answers to the packet tracers in them, PowerPoints, release notes. Here's the skills assessment when you get to actually doing the hands-on final. This is where you download it from. You probably can't access this right now because you're not accredited to teach yet. But as soon as you're accredited to teach in this class, you will have access to all of this. Okay. There's also been a game created for part of this that we'll look at as we get further down in the class. We'll talk about what that is. But under course resources, Cyberops Associate version 1, you will find all of these. Likewise, by the way, if you're teaching any other course, if you're teaching, let's go under course resources just because it's easier to see this way. If you're teaching CCNA 1 or 2 or 3, don't forget that we have those same resources pretty much available for every one of those courses. All right, so those are there. And if you're accredited, you can download these and use them, which is very helpful. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what I see as where this class fits in a sequence. Once you start getting into this class and looking at the actual flow, you will see that there's an entire, pretty much there's two chapters I call it kind of intro chapters. Then we get into the Windows operating system and how Windows, some of the features you need to know in order to work with security tools and some of the common problems with Windows. Then we have a short section on Linux, which is very important because Linux is pretty much where all of our security tools run in. And then you get into a section here that is really from 5 to 10, all the way really down to 12. This is almost a short little networking essentials course, or a little network essentials. So one of the things I actually suggest is that when you think about where you're going to put this in your curriculum, in the state of North Carolina, we have put it in a class called Sec 160. This is typically where most schools teach it. This used to be CCNA security, but they did away with the CCNA security exam. So we have at the state level, most people now teach Cyberops Associate right there. Okay. Now, before they get to that class, our students have already had CCNA 1 through, I can't type today, y'all. CCNA 1 through 3. All right. I don't think you need all 3 of those before you take Cyberops. I do think you need at least CCNA 1 or Network Essentials, or not Network Essentials, Networking Essentials, that the course that we have inside of NetAcad. We've got an entire course that they made called Networking Essentials. So one of those 2, I really do feel like you need to have before you try to take Cyberops Associate. Okay. It would also not hurt if you're doing just the Cisco world to have Intro to Cybersecurity and even Cybersecurity Essentials. Okay. Now, that is by no means required. but it may help, okay, may help your students if they've had those two before they go into this. The whole goal of this class and the certification exam is for you to be a SOC level 1 analyst. Okay, so it is, as I told you last week, the most non-Cisco course I've ever seen. As you're looking through it, you're going to go, wow. I mean, they do some Cisco marketing, talking about AMP, endpoint, that type of stuff, but there's a lot of the stuff in here that has nothing to do really with Cisco technologies and Cisco's stuff. So it is really designed to try to get your student that SOC level 1. It has a single exam. Now, one of the things that used to be, Cyberops Associate used to be 2 exams, no more. It's now 1 exam. Your students will get a 60% discount voucher if they make a 70 or higher on the final. You will get a 70% or higher when you make higher than 70 on the final for this course. All right. Where, quick question now, Ralph, I know you're in our system, so you're probably looking maybe Sec 160, or there are other places to put it in a security program too. It fits in other security classes. This is what we use for really for the networking programs throughout the state. And some people do that in the security programs, some don't. But do any of you have a class that you kind of think you could slot this into? You feel free to come off mute and talk about it. Or I would say it's not a senior level. I mean, well, at a community college, I don't think it has to be a class you take in your 2nd year. But like I said, I do think you need to have CCNA 1 and a little bit of intro to security before you jump right into this class. Any questions about that?
Well, I what I'm doing with my sophomore class, I'm starting them with the ITE, but they're doing the chapters, I think 10 through, well, actually 9 through 14, if you're familiar with that curriculum. 9 is the virtualization, where they actually do create the virtualization using the hypervisor. And I've had them do that on the PCs within the classroom. And then I'm going through the other chapters, 10, 11, and 12, which would go over the security, some items with of security. And then I was going to maybe do networking essentials with them, and then cyber ops.
Yes, I think you would be fine then. Yeah, I think that would be fine. That's one reason why I don't really agree with this particular, with Cyberops Associates saying no formal prerequisites. Yes, there are no formal prerequisites, but I strongly recommend these. I would also say it would never, ever hurt you to have them do, say, Linux Essentials. You know, it's never going to hurt them to have that before they do this class, because we are using some tools and some Linux things toward the end of the class that may confuse them a little bit if they don't have some knowledge of how to get on the command line and do some things. Sorry, phone's trying to ring it off the hook. Now, I will also tell you, I strongly recommend downloading the exam topics. I'm actually going to download these and dump them into our class so that you have them. But this is the exam. Well, if it ever comes up, 200, 201, and you'll see the different percentages, 20% concepts, which includes everything from CIA triad down through the difference between, you know, DAC, MAC. These, by the way, if you look at this, a lot of this looks very similar to anybody who has done Security Plus or any security training. You know, a lot of this is straight types of things you would see in Security Plus. Security monitoring, how to use, identify TCP dump, NetFlow, and we look at all these in this class, going all the way down to what are these portions. Now, one of the things I teach students, and I hate to admit how long it took me and how dumb I am that it took me this long to figure this out, but this word is extremely important because it tells you the level you need to know. You know, is it Bloom's taxonomy? Describe the triad, compare. For all of these, there's not really a great deal of anything that says actual work or actually do the hands-on. I think there's 1 or 2 items that would be, now it's all describe, apply, map, identify. So basically know the difference between protected health information, describe the concepts of NIST SP 800-86. So there's a lot of, unfortunately, things that are, now, right here's an extract from a TCP stream when given a PCAP file. So you could possibly have an actual simulation with that, to where you would have to do that. And we have a lab, and you do that in, sorry, you do that in on the hands-on final, to be quite honest with you. So that skill is tested multiple times in the curriculum. So this is extremely useful for you as you work. I'm gonna actually download it to my PC and stick it in our class. Okay, so that we can get that there. But again, one class or one test, one exam, 120-minute assessment. I don't remember how many questions are on it. When I took it, it was 2 exams, so I had to take 2 different exams. I did mention though that that I passed the Cyberops Associate and then spent about a week with a CYSA Plus book and went and passed CYSA Plus. There was that much overlap between the 2. So I would say that if you want to kind of look at doubling up on certifications, this is a good way to do it. I don't promise you that it would be the same still, but when I did it, there was so much overlap that it was really kind of hard to believe how much overlap there was. Now, my only problem I have with CompTIA is their pricing is just absurd. Even their educational pricing, this would still be $150 to $170 test, and they need to lower their prices, I think personally, but that's just me. All right, but that's an option. I'll throw that out there for you. Any questions about what this maps to and how to place it in your curriculum? None? Okay. I do think it's an excellent course because, like I said, I feel like even straight out of high school, if they have these skills and they have the certification, they could possibly get a SOC job. So especially level 1, because they are low-level jobs at SOC analysis. So okay. Any questions? Now, quick question for you on installing the virtual machines. Did anyone have any trouble with this lab in terms of installing the virtual machine or getting the virtual machine downloaded? You do have to log in to get them. The only one you use to begin with is the Cyberops workstation. We'll be using the Security Onion later as we move forward, but it actually walks through, and I haven't actually downloaded and installed this one locally on my machine, so I can't really show it to you, but it usually, for the most part, is a fairly easy thing to do. Just make sure you are meeting the requirements for the amount of hard drive space. So 8 gigs of RAM and 40 gigs free of hard drive space. So that sometimes gets people in trouble, is running out of that space. All right. Case studies. I will tell you, several of you had.
I have one question, Kelly.
Okay, go ahead.
So installing the virtual machine, this lab I can do with the NetLab, right?
Yeah. Well, no, that one is not on NetLabs. That one is only available if you're going to be loading the machines locally on your desktop.
I don't want to.
Okay, so, then no, then just skip that lab, and do your labs on NetLabs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
you. You can just skip that lab if you're not going to load them locally. Yep.
Okay.
The reason I say to do it is if you are going to have your students use that, then you want to go through that lab so you understand how it's going to work and make sure you understand anything they're going to go through. Okay. Several of you did this lab for me already, and one of the things I didn't realize, there was an attack from, I think it was Starwood and Marriott, and it was so interesting because the attack started against Starwood before the hotels before they merged with Marriott, and the attack actually survived the merger, so that the hackers then, once the merger took place, had access to the Marriott database, and then finally Marriott found it. And then the other one that was really phenomenal was I think it was something like 500 million users. Their information was breached as part of that. And then there's another big breach in Canada of protected health information, which was very, very interesting. So this Marriott data breach and the Life Labs data breach. Those two were really, really, really interesting because of the information that was found. And I didn't really even know about this United Nations data breach, which was had happened in kind of a subsystem that didn't get used very often. So those were all interesting hacks and case studies. And one thing you may want to do is, as you're teaching this class, if there's a recent attack that's come up, you may want to replace it, because Stuxnet is a fairly old attack. I hate to admit it, but I think we will see in the next 2 weeks or so, if Russia decides to hit the Ukraine, there will be a cyber attack against Ukraine, because the last time they went into Crimea, they took down the power grid and the communication systems. Russian hackers did. Of course, they said it wasn't the government, but it was the government. But I think we'll see a fairly large and concerted cyber attack against the Ukraine before any type of actual military action takes place. So that if you want to replace some of these in your own classroom, feel free to do so. But this whole first module is just looking at really basic things like who the threat actors are. Don't forget to do, click the little buttons to see the different types of hacktivists and financial gain. I will say that students today need to realize how big of a danger this thing is in their pocket. That most of them keep their life on their phones, and they don't secure it the way they need to, and they don't really think about how the phone is more insecure than they believe. So the second one here is real good because it talks about what a SOC is, what a security operations center is, processes, people, and technologies. We're going to talk about all of these in this class. The technology of what is used in a SOC and how that's used with a SIEM, or a security information and event management system. We are building these students right here, Tier 1 alert analysts. That's really what we're trying to build with this class. And then once you become a Tier 1 analyst, you eventually can move up, hopefully, to Tier 2, and then on up to Tier 3. And then obviously there's only a couple SOC managers, but our goal in this class is to help people become Tier 1 alert analysts. So monitoring tickets, opening tickets, and basic threat mitigation is going to be what they do. And then they'll move it up to a Tier 2, who will do the more deep investigation and remediation. And then your Tier 3s are kind of like the SMEs that are doing daily looks at, day zero attacks, different types of anomalies in the data center or in the way data is being moved. Those folks are up in Tier 3. So if you have not heard of this term before, but a SIEM is a security information and event management system. And what it does, and this is something I used to do when I was a network admin, every single morning I would come in, and I worked at a community college, so we didn't have money to pay for a big SIEM thing, but every day I would come in, and the first thing I would do is I would look at the logs for the servers every morning. First thing, I'd pull up the logs for the server, look for anything that was out of the ordinary. And that is a very labor-intensive way to do monitoring. A SIEM system collects all types of information from traffic flows, traffic network flows, logs, anything from multiple pieces. It can be from your firewall, it can be from servers, it can be from IPSs, intrusion prevention systems, and intrusion detection systems. It takes all that information in, and now what they've started doing is using AI and machine learning to take that information and massage it and try to pull out what is important and what isn't. And then present that to your SOC analyst. There's so much information going on in our networks today that it's almost impossible for a human to monitor it. In fact, we're moving now into the realm to where we have AI systems fighting AI systems in many ways. So you have AI attacks, you have AI working in the SIEM and the SOC trying to fight back against it, which is going to be very interesting as we move forward. So, and this is security orchestration, automation, and response. They're normally paired. This gets to the point to where, let's say you see an attack, and this is an example of something that Cisco can do with their existing product line. You take and plug in a PC to a port. That switch will take the information from that PC, send it automatically, query the PC and find out if the PC has the current security updates for Windows. If it doesn't, it will send it, and it will actually move that PC into a VLAN that's called a remediation VLAN, and then tell that PC basically it's got to go update before it can be on the actual network. The other thing you can do is this: if the SIM system sees an attack taking place, the SIM system can tell the switch to automatically shut the ports down on that machine. So if a worm's starting to go off and the SIM system sees it, it can say, either put it in a black hole VLAN or a VLAN that can't get out of, or simply shut that VLAN down and that port down and not allow the attack to continue. So that's when we're getting into actually pairing them together. Now, the problem is these systems are ridiculously expensive. The other problem is this: what if the SIM system makes a mistake and it's not really an attack, but it's a new piece of software, and it goes and shuts down ports that the machines are on that we're doing payroll? So there's a balance here. There's always a balance where you need a human in here to say, whoa, 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 wait a minute, that's valid traffic. So that's something interesting. But see kind of where this is going, that we're going to have these automated responses as we get more and more information. And the idea, the scary thing to me is, as we automate these things, you've got to think about this too. As we develop these automation processes, we also are just giving hackers a way to hit our networks. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. The more we put these things in place, the more we could actually be creating issues for our systems. So some metrics, these terms could show up somewhere. I'm just going to put that out there. But the dwell time is the amount of time the actor had access to the network before they were detected. Some of these dwell times are getting to be unbelievable. I'm talking in the 8, 10, 12 months to years range that hackers are in a network before they are being caught, which is very scary. So mean time to detect is the average time it takes to identify a valid security incident. Mean time to respond, how long it takes to respond and remediate. The mean time to contain is how long till you can stop it from doing any more data. And then time to control, time that required to stop the spread. So I would probably just kind of, with these terms, make sure your students know them. And this is one that I really like to talk about, because I can tell you this: security and availability are inverse in most points. Because if I take a computer, I lock it in a vault, surround it in 40 to 50 tons of concrete, throw it into the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean, that computer is pretty secure. All right, but it's not available. So security is always a balance of availability and security. All right. The other thing about availability and security people don't think about is, one of the most expensive things in my data center is my generator. It's over $280,000 for the generator I put in my data center that I support. That is the single most expensive item in my network or in my data center. And that is just so hopefully I can have it to where my network doesn't go down due to a power outage, due to ice storm or whatever. And we have a lot of storms here in our area, so that is very important. But look at the, talking about 5 nines. If you have a network that's up 5 nines, you can only be down 5.256 minutes per year. That's pretty phenomenal when you think about it. And then 6 nines is 30 seconds and 7 nines is 3.16 seconds. So, I also have a friend who used to work at one of the large banks, and he said for every minute that they were down, it would cost the bank over $1 million for their ATM network. So they were constantly trying to hit this type of availability, this 7 nines. Okay. We've actually had fairly recently a good number of outages, especially on Amazon's web services. You think about AWS. AWS has had a couple pretty bad outages lately, which are pretty interesting. All right, I'm not going to really go through the Windows part and the Linux part right now. I'll let you continue to work through those. Do you have any questions on the first two sections? I know they're very, very general. Any questions at all on the Linux overview or anything with the Windows overview? These are all available here in the lab. So if you don't want to load it locally, like this is, by the way, you're going to see the Windows client is actually a server. I will tell you, if you don't like the size of this screen, which I don't, okay. Oh man, I cannot type it off. Mistype Cyberops. So you see how big this is? I know that's kind of big and probably aggravating for you. When it was loaded, I don't really know why we loaded it with this type, but just go in here and change the display settings if you want it smaller. That's not a problem, because as soon as you get done with it, it will go back to the regular size. So you can change it if you want to. But you'll also see that inside this here, inside the toolbox, is where you'll find the sysinternals and the TCP view and the things for your labs. But we actually, believe it or not, the reason we use a server box instead of a client, instead of a Windows 10 box, is because it's cheaper. The licensing fee for us is cheaper to put a server on this than it is to put a Windows client. So, but be aware, all the labs are here. Just make absolutely sure when you do the lab that you use these documents. Okay, you must do the lab using the documents inside your reservation. Otherwise, it may not work. Okay. These are PDFs, so you will have to either open them up in a PDF viewer to put in your answers, or open them up in Word and just convert it to a doc file, because you can do that too. And then when you get done with the lab, you're going to go into your class and you're going to upload your assignments into our class, into each one of the uploads. Please do remember, Robin, I know you're new to the class. Make sure you look at the syllabus, because I'm not requiring you to do every single one of these labs. You would die. Okay, we're only asking you to do a portion of these labs. So make sure you do look in the syllabus and see. I've got due dates for every single thing, but this is the important part, and that is that you've only got to do 25 modules of your choice. I do suggest you do the ones further down. I mean, if you got time to do them all, no doubt. But you probably know some of this stuff up at the beginning. As you get further down in here, though, creating Snort firewall rules, converting data, extract and executable from PCAP. By the way, that's exactly what was one of our requirements for the exam. Right there's a lab on it. Okay, so I would suggest taking, if you only are going to do the minimum of 25, do the ones that are down in here on things that you really don't know how to do or haven't done before. Okay. Questions on that? All right. That was about all I have for today. There are no questions. I will stop sharing.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So you all meet once a week?
Yep.
Okay. And then the information that you have, I'll be able to find that within the student.
Yes. Let me show you that real quickly. I will show you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me share my screen again. And it's in the first. It's in the only thing you got to do in Canvas is, hold on one second. I got to get a code.
Mm-hmm.
We're using multi-factor authentication, so which is good. But in the class here, the only thing you'll need to do is this first assignment, and then there's a document, and then your seat token to get into the NetAcad class is right here. It tells you how to do it, and then your seat token is in here. So this is the document that will tell you how to use your seat token, and this seat token will get you into the class. Okay. And I don't want to click on it because it actually show your seat token to the world, and then somebody will try to use it. So, and there's even a video here on how to use that O'Reilly database. So you may want to watch that too, because that's where this playlist is at. But you also, I didn't remember, I don't know if I sent out the recording from last week. I'll try to send that to you. Our recording from last week that goes over all of this, so you can watch it, because that'll help you a lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. Any other questions? Okay, at this point, just keep reading and working on the labs. And Robin, you let me know if you have any trouble getting the other things taken care of, getting into the class, because they should be able to help you.
Okay, thank you for helping me today.
No problem.
Wit's end.
No problem at all.